So we're ready to start painting our layered portrait. What I want you to do is pick out two complementary colors. These are going to be the main colors you're going to use for your foreground and your background. You can choose whichever pair you want for this. For example, I'm going to choose green and red for my main colors. I also want you to pick out a third color. This third color is the color you're going to use for your line work, and you're going to paint this first. You can go with an analogous color like yellow. Since I'm using green and red, I can go with a magenta, I can go with a blue or a cyan, but it just has to be different than your parent complementary colors. I'm going to go ahead and get a small brush, a small point. This is going to help me out. And so my colors are going to be green for the background, red for my foreground object, and I'm going to go with some kind of like violet for my line work because I want it to stand out. So I got my palette here. You can use a primary color palette to mix up colors, or if you have some already available that you can mix up and make it go faster, that is totally fine. What I'm doing right here is I'm mixing up this kind of like violet color, and I can go ahead and like change the value a little bit by adding a little bit of white. And what I'm going to do is start by painting in all of the lines that make up my background pattern. One thing that I like to do is, when it comes to my background, is use a thinner line, which is going to like force me to focus on a little bit more details and take my time. I'm going to use the same color to paint in the lines from my object in the foreground. The only difference is I'm going to go ahead and use a heavier, thicker line weight for this. Not too different, but that's going to help me differentiate between the background and the foreground. And what I recommend is you can rotate your canvas, kind of do your line work, and the more you do this, the better you're going to get at it. And one tip for painting is I like to load up my brush, make sure it has a little bit of water in it to make it fluid, and I like to make sure I have like 2 points of contact, so my hand is holding the canvas, my other hand is holding the brush, and I like to take like a deep breath, so actually I can like have a little bit more control and I'm not shaking that much. And I normally like to pull toward me. I notice that makes my line work a little bit more controlled. I also like to work on small sections at a time, so that way I can keep a consistent rhythm and line weight when it comes to my lines. So I'll show you how this looks like when I'm done. Alright, so now I have all my lines traced out using this purple dark violet color, and you can see how my object begins to like integrate with the background design that I created with my path and repeated path pattern. The next step, what you're going to do is, with your complementary colors, is start to paint in the background. So because I'm going to choose to go with green for my background color, all I want to do is start to paint inside those shapes that I created using my path line with green. And the nice fun thing about this is that there is no specific rule as to what color green, and the only thing I want you to do is to experiment with different values and tints of green for each section. And I want you to be careful and paint up to those lines, because those are going to be really important. We do not want to get rid of them. And I want you to have each section be a different type of green. So if you want to go ahead and add some yellow to your green, and even darken it up, you can. And I want to leave this up to you. So the purpose of this project, of this painting portion of it, is I want you to explore and experiment with the different types of like green values you can get, the variations on this parent color that we're using, and even just by adding a little bit of white, I'm shifting that green. And I want to play around with where I place my different variations. And so what I'm going to do is just go ahead and paint in the background of each one of these little sections, so you get an idea, using different types of green, because that is one of my complementary colors I chose. So you're probably asking yourself, well, what about the other complementary color that I have? Well, I chose red. So for the red, you're going to do essentially the same thing. I'm going to take my red. I don't want you to use it straight out of the tube. I do want you to change it up in one way, either by adding white. You can add its complement to darken up the red. You can add white to lighten it. You can add yellow to punch up the saturation. But always go back and think of as red, or your color that you chose, as the parent color. And what you'll be doing is creating variations on that color, and each of those little spaces you created with your line. And just by shifting and changing the amount of red I put in there, each one is going to be different. So experiment. You can go lighter, you can go brighter, you can go darker. If you want it to be reflective of your object and show some type of like modeling, that is totally fine. If you want to go ahead and add some texture to each of those shapes, you can do that as well, as long as each of those little shapes that we created are different. And take it all the way to the edge, and be careful because we want to keep that line showing. And you'll continue to do this for your whole painting.